Hello and welcome to another inspiring episode of Global Desi Women. I'm your host, Arti Solanki, a business coach, real estate broker, and an author of Hindu Rituals. I'm here with my amazing co host, Bhavana Shelley, a business analyst, Vinoo Palicha, founder of Vdesi Ethnic Wear Collection, and Bhawna Luthra, a licensed family and marriage therapist. Today, Today's episode is extra special. We're joined by a powerhouse in medicine, wellness, and leadership. Dr. Prasanthi Tandapu. She is a triple board certified endocrinologist and a lifestyle specialist, founder of DFW Endocrinology, and a pioneer in reversing chronic diseases like diabetes and obesity through lifestyle changes. So grab your cup of chai and let's get started. Dr. Prashanthi, welcome to Global Desi Women. We are so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Arti, for the kind introduction. And thank you all.
Doctor, we are just going to dive in straight because I know we have so many questions when it comes to diabetes and thyroid, and especially with our Indian community. Are there any significant higher risk for type 2 diabetes being an Indian? And why is that? Let's start out with that. I know we have a lot of follow-up questions after that, but let's start out with that.
So, in general, I mean, if you go by the BMI, have lower BMI, and people think, okay, we are thin, so there is no risk of developing diabetes or anything like that. But unfortunately, that is not true. For Asians or Indians, anything BMI about 27 is still considered as a risk factor. And the most important thing I want to say is insulin resistance is very in the Asians, especially Indians, Southeast Asians, and that is the major risk factor. And also the diet that we eat. And of course, what we ate like several years ago, it has changed culturally.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the modern diet is kind of similar to standard American diet, which we call a sad diet. So it is not helping anyone.
Right, right. So, and what can we do as a community to start reversing this trend?
It's very simple. Simple to say, but practically it's very hard to practice, right? I advocate for minimally processed foods, meaning whole grain, plant forward diet is what I advocate for. Eating more vegetables, eating more fresh vegetables and fruits, whole grains, less processed foods or flours, or increasing the amount of the fiber really helps a lot. That's what we advocate for. And it's simple to say. And lifestyle, it's not just the diet either. Again, there are other pillars also. There is sleep, stress, there is like a social connection. These are all important parts, and exercise, of course.
Yeah. Ladies, do you have a follow up question?
I'm actually going to ask a very basic question for somebody who doesn't know what exactly is endocrinology. Besides diabetes and thyroid, is there anything else that falls under that topic?
Yes. So endocrine system is very complex. So our fellowship, it's called as endocrinology, diabetes, and metabolism. So people, it's very long. So everybody says endocrinologist. Unfortunately, a lot of people do not even know what endocrinology means. Our majority of the people that we see are diabetes and thyroid, but we deal with a lot of hormonal issues. So endocrine system is basically like from top to bottom, starting with your pituitary gland, going down and affecting all the other glands. So your thyroid, adrenal gland, your ovaries, so pretty much everything is affected by your pituitary gland. So we deal with the whole endocrine system.
Mm. Wow, that's amazing. So, so does that mean that when somebody's diagnosed pre-diabetic, are they supposed to do something different dietary wise than the diabetic people? Like, it's always a scare when you see like, oh, I'm pre-diabetic. Now what do I do? And then, few months later it turns into diabetics, and if you don't take care of it. So what are the steps that we need to take in order to not convert it into diabetes?
Several years. It depends on when you are really diagnosed with pre-diabetes. I mean, insulin resistance, then pre-diabetes, and then you move on to diabetes. It's several years of slow changes that can happen within your body before you really develop diabetes and your body gives up and cannot produce enough insulin or uh, like you are not controlled. What can you do? It is easily reversible if you start making changes early on. Again, realizing your own self, like, are we doing things the right way? Again, like I said, the 6 pillars of lifestyle are very, very important: diet, exercise, sleep, stress, social connection, and then substance abuse. So if we can take care of all of that and then understanding your own body and trying to nurture it, that's very important. But if we don't listen to our body and try to, do whatever we like, unfortunately, we develop diabetes.
Mm.
And in this country, or like in general, now what is available and accessible is not necessarily the healthy option. So making it like accessible, the healthy choice, making the healthy choice the easier choice is very important.
Right.
So, doctor, what is the major difference that our audience would like to understand? There is a diabetes type 2 and then the regular. Which one is kind of like, what are the major differences?
Do you mind repeating one more time, Bhavana?
Sure. Sure. I just wanted to have an understanding on the differences between the two diabetes that are diagnosed, the diabetes type 2 and then the regular diabetes. And then also there is a pre-diabetic, which we know, but the major two types of diabetic, what are the major differences between the two?
Actually, there are more than 5 types, to tell you the truth.
Oh, wow.
But for general people, type 1 and type 2 is what most people know. And there are categories in between also. So type 2 means they're not necessarily like born with diabetes, or like it is not like related to production of insulin. So the major difference is, are you producing insulin or not? So type 1s, most of the time you burnt out the insulin or you are no longer producing insulin and you are dependent on insulin. That's the type 1. Type 2 is you are producing insulin, but you are resistant to insulin because of the weight or other issues or problems. So it can be reversible very easily with diet, exercise, and lifestyle changes, the type 2. Type 1, it's very hard to reverse, but also there is more and more data coming in. Usually it is autoimmune destruction in type 1. Even in type 1 now, there is more data coming in to affect the autoimmunity, and they are developing like some agents or drugs which can help prevent or delay it for a longer periods of time. It is early on. Hopefully, we will have better treatments sooner. And some people are able to produce some insulin in the early stages, but eventually they get to the point where they are no longer able to produce insulin. So that's the major difference. And you will be able to see by looking at them. Type 1s are usually thin, but again, at this time, probably it's very difficult to differentiate. Even type 1s can gain weight eventually and develop insulin resistance. And then type 2s, most of the time, they are overweight or obese.
Right.
And what are the causes of, having the thyroid issues? Like, it is becoming so common lately that, even the younger generation are having issues with their thyroids. So is there some sort of early symptoms, early sign, or is it basically hormonal issues and it's just something that it just comes up as it progresses?
The thyroid, again, there is hypo and hyper also. Again, there are multiple between two. Hypo is low thyroid and hyper is overactive thyroid. And both of them can be autoimmune diseases.
Let's take a quick break.
Hi, this is Rahul, host of the Bearded Mystic podcast. Subscribe to this podcast as I dive deep into the philosophy of non-duality within Hinduism. I speak about the teachings of the mystics from numerous traditions. There's guided meditations, and currently I'm giving my thoughts on the Bhagavad Gita. Come and join me. Subscribe right now to the Bearded Mystic podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you're listening now.
That's the most
Are there
common one.
any early signs, like, can we kind of like take care of ourselves in a way that these situations doesn't occur, especially in the younger generation these days?
The only thing, there is also a hypothyroidism that develops related to iodine deficiency. That one can be easily corrected. I mean, some people, if you're completely avoiding the iodized salt, or you do not get it from the food, iodine, like usually like seaweed, some of the other foods may have iodine. And if you're completely avoiding them, you may develop iodine deficiency. People do develop like goiters. Probably you might have seen back home also. Some people develop like big neck goiters, or if you live in an area with iodine deficiency, that can happen. What can we do to prevent? That one is the simplest one. But in for the regular ones, I don't think we have anything to say, okay, this is preventive, that is preventive necessarily. But there is some decent data. I think, again, these autoimmune diseases and some of the other things are modifiable or reversible or like better with changing the diet.
Yeah. So
Can you
thyroid.
suggest that diet? Can you suggest that diet? Which one would, when you mention the diet, can you a little bit talk about the diet, since you said this would help with diabetes or thyroid, since you're lifestyle medicine? So I thought this would be a good time to ask that.
I want to say it's not like one of the fad diets or anything. I want to say it's like something that everybody needs to incorporate. It has been in all the cultures. Like I said, whole food plant forward plate is what we advocate. Most of the, if you put like vegetables, 50% vegetables, and then 1/4 of your plate is filled with beans and then your protein, mostly plant based protein. But I mean, if I'm not going to say you have to completely stop everything in case you are like eating meat, but again, fiber plays a big role. And then the other 1/4 is your, like you, when you make it into processed food like breads, you're adding a lot of salt, sugar, and other unnecessary things. So just the process of making these things, the nutrients are lost. And in general, all these fruits, vegetables, whole grains, they are packaged with nutrients. And when you refine them, process them, you are losing a lot of nutritional value. The quality of the diet has gone down when you do that. And then fiber really helps with developing, making the bacteria grow in your gut and produce short chain fatty acids, which are anti inflammatory. That also helps in preventing a lot of diseases. There is more and more data coming in, even in the field of cancer, saying that if you change the lifestyle, it can definitely affect you
Mm,
or help you.
right, right.
And when I say lifestyle, I don't want to just focus on diet only, but it's a combination of everything.
Yeah.
It
Doctor,
does
is
sound like,
there. Sorry,
go
Bhavna,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was just saying, it sounds like, we've been hearing all this time, change the food to be more healthier choices. You go in there for like maybe a week and then you get tired of it. It's like, okay, you got to go back to adding here, little bit here, a little bit there. And then it goes away after a long time. It is hard to keep up with all the time, that kind of, whole food. And plus it takes time
It's a
to
lifestyle
to
change.
get things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big
And
change. It's a big change.
you can make it tasty also. I mean, there are definitely options. You can just still, it can be easy. We do cooking demos and other things too. You can make tastier food with the same similar things, but you don't have to eat the greens the way the greens are, right? You can cook them in a different way. You can make it into like, I was looking at something today, like lettuce boats or something with stir fried vegetables and tofu. So you can always mix and match. You can still do stir fried rice, even with brown rice. You don't have to, like, sacrifice the taste or anything. So definitely, I don't want to say you just have to sacrifice everything and feel like, it's something that you are not going to continue. Start with very small changes. What can you make a change with? What do you enjoy first? You can start with that. Okay, if you like cucumbers, okay, you can just start eating a little bit more on the cucumbers, right? Just start with one thing and add like more colors to the plate, and slowly you will get the hang of it. I advocate for chia seed pudding as breakfast, and you can put different kinds of fruits. And it's really, really tasty if you have not tried it.
Yeah, Bhavna is a big time. She does that all the time. Whenever I call her in the morning, she's like, "I'm having my chia pudding," and I'm like, "I don't know how you eat this."
Yeah, once you get the hang of it, yeah, you can put mango, you can put berries. It's
Yes,
really, really tasty. And you can put milk or yogurt, you can change up.
interesting,
The
interesting.
chia seed pudding with pistachio, especially, is really nice.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
get
and
that.
you can put all the seeds and nuts in it, pumpkin seeds, hemp seeds.
Mhm.
And those are all like, they add up and they add up to the fiber, omega 3s. Those are all very healthy.
So I want to know, Doctor, since we talked about a little bit about thyroid, does that affect, especially being a woman, and when we are in our menopause, is that the same? Does the thyroid affect because of the hormonal change in our body?
I mean, the levels can fluctuate a little bit. It is dependent on your weight. So the thyroid levels can fluctuate up and down depending on the weight of the person.
But again, thyroid also causes weight gain, right?
Yes, if you don't control it, yes, it causes weight gain. But if your thyroid is well controlled, I don't think that should be an issue.
Does it
It only contributes to 10% of your weight. That's what I say. So I don't want to attribute like all of the weight changes related to thyroid.
Right, right, right. So does that also affect pregnancy? Because during the pregnancy, we go through so much hormonal change, and I guess thyroid plays the big role on hormones, right?
So for the babies, definitely. I mean, miscarriages, abortions during pregnancy. So we do follow, monitor, and treat people very, very closely,
Mm,
making sure that the levels are normal because there is some evidence for miscarriages, abortions, and affecting the baby's growth.
okay, interesting. Yeah, yeah. Because my personal experience, I have thyroid for 28 years. And during my pregnancy, I had jumped from hyper to hypo and back to hyper. And I was a total, I would say I looked like a total crazy person at that time.
Even postpartum inflammation can happen. Again, everybody is different. People do develop postpartum thyroiditis. That's totally different, which is usually a temporary condition.
Mm. Right, right, right. And I mean, like, I was checked for the kids that if they had developed thyroid because I was diagnosed thyroid during my pregnancy. So that's how I got the thyroid.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So I was like, thyroid is, I guess people say that it's the easiest manageable disease if you ever want to have, if you ever had a disease, that would be one of the easiest to manage.
Yes. All you have to do is take the medication,
Yeah.
and then even if you miss a pill, actually, you can make it up. You can take 2 pills the next day.
Yeah. Is there anything you would like to say to people who are struggling to manage their thyroid issues, especially women, because we always have our hormones going all over the places?
Yeah. I would say don't focus just on the number or anything. I mean, take your medicine regularly. Like I said, if you miss the pill, you can take 2 pills the next day. What you get in a week is more important. And also, people think, okay, I have to eat and I'm going to skip the pill because I have to eat or I cannot go to work without eating, and they try to do it together. But also, there is an option of taking it at night or bedtime. You can take it at bedtime as long as you have enough space in between your food and the medication. And what else do I have to say? I do not encourage people to get on the internet, read everything about it, and come up with, okay, this lab, that lab. But for the most part, TSH is still a good measure for the thyroid. And especially if you're taking thyroid medication, I would say, yeah, there are rare exceptions here and there. But for the most part, following the TSH is still a good measure. And then keeping it at a good level is still good. And if you're overactive, again, it can affect your bones, and regular monitoring, getting checked at least, once in 6 months, once a year. It's very important to follow through.
And what
And
about the
several medications can affect the thyroid absorption. That is very important. So as you are adjusting or changing the medications, it's important to know that that might affect your thyroid.
Right.
Can you talk about Hashimoto? Because that's another one people really don't understand. It's like it's not, if it's not managed well, the thyroid, is it then what it leads to Hashimoto?
So Hashimoto is mainly having positive thyroid antibodies. That is the Hashimoto thyroiditis or inflammation of the thyroid. Now, Hashimoto is the most common cause for low thyroid, but just because somebody has antibodies, we don't have any treatments now just to treat the antibodies like rheumatoid arthritis or anything. Having said that, if one develops low thyroid, like your TSH, T4, and everything is showing that you are low on thyroid, definitely we want to treat you. But just having the inflammation doesn't warrant like treatment necessarily.
Okay.
And do you recommend Synthroid versus the other one? I guess armor. Yeah. I mean, people have those preferences, or it depends on the doctors. You hear different things. What does it difference?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say I have both of them, but for the most part, people are on levothyroxine, which is either that's what is in everything, including armor. It's the T4, but armor has T3. Now, one thing I want to remember is your body does have T4 and T3, but your body has the ability to convert T4 to T3 in the cells. Even if you take the T4 or synthroid or whatever you call it, unithroid, eventually, yes, you will have the ability to convert to T3. It's very, very rare that somebody doesn't convert. Now, you have to remember pork thyroid is not equivalent to human thyroid. The ratio of the T4 and T3 are not same as human thyroid in the pork thyroid. It does have more T3 and less of the T. So when you are doing the blood work, your T4 levels could look like it is low and your T3 could be much, much higher because it is pork thyroid. Now, again, a lot of the people do monitor TSH if somebody has done really, really well on the armor. But for the most part, still the levothyroxine works. The difference, though, the generic versus brand name, there are some differences, though, because depending on the manufacturer, if your generic levothyroxine it comes from a different manufacturer each and every time, some people are very sensitive and small fluctuations can affect their thyroid levels and how they feel.
Yeah.
And some of them could be sensitive to the dyes. That's the only thing I want to say. But we also say if you really want to be close to the human thyroid and if we feel like, okay, the T3 has made a huge, huge difference for them, we do give the T3 separately and see if they have like significant improvement or difference. Definitely, we don't mind continuing the T3, but the ratio that we give is a little bit different.
Yeah. So, doctor, what do you think about this? How does stress play the role in both diabetes and in thyroid health? And how can we better manage that in our fast paced daily lives? How can we manage those?
Of course, stress affects anything and everything, right? It can lead to weight gain and your stress hormones, cortisol, growth hormone, insulin. All these things do not help you. They only make your insulin resistance worse. So, in that way, it doesn't help the insulin resistance, prediabetes, or diabetes, or even obesity in general. With regards to the thyroid, depending on your weight, like I said, your thyroid dosing has to be adjusted. That's the main thing with the thyroid. Or if you're not very well controlled, yes, you may tend to gain the weight.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest thing we hear from thyroid people, right? Like we gain weight, but it's so hard to lose now because we can't lose because especially if I can speak for myself, like the diet doesn't change, but the weight keeps changing. It's just keep happening.
And the stress about it doesn't help either.
Yeah.
It only
Stop
makes it
thinking
worse.
about it, Arti.
Yeah.
So,
And yeah,
go ahead,
people
doctor.
do stress a lot about it, and the stress doesn't really, really help at all. So if you just ignore and think about like, okay, how can we stay healthy versus okay, how is my weight? Okay. I want people to focus on being healthy, being active, and long-term goals rather than just the weight part of it.
Yeah.
So, doctor, what do you think about Ozempic?
What do I speak about Ozempic? So it's a semaglutide that everybody has been using. Originally, I mean, this was like when I was doing my fellowship. I think that's when like all these came into. So I got the opportunity to see it from the beginning. So originally it was like big pen, bulky needle. It's not semaglutide. It was different. It was used to be called Byetta, and then like so many improvements has come, and then it became eventually once a week medication. But also it's available as a pill form too. The same Ozempic or semaglutide is available as a pill form. They do
So the
work. These were originally
question,
developed for diabetic patients
right?
to help with insulin resistance. But they saw the effect on the appetite, they saw the effect on the weight. Now they made them into weight loss drugs. And I'm not sure when you say what is your opinion.
I meant to say, especially when it was meant for helping the diabetes patients. And yes, it does help also in reducing the weight, and people are taking it, probably abusing it. In the long run, what is going to happen to those patients who are actually taking it not for diabetes reasons, but they're taking it because they want to go thin? And are there risk? I think our audience, a lot of time they're like, oh, I want to lose certain 10, 15 pounds, maybe I should take Ozempic. Is that is there a risk?
It's become more of a fashion trend than for the
Fashion,
health,
yeah.
right? So that's a very good question, Bhavna.
Yeah, I want to say, yeah, I mean, we are living in that era of like everybody is on it. I can see it myself. I don't see them necessarily for diabetes, but I'm seeing them for thyroid, but their primary care or somewhere they are getting this semaglutide and they're like, okay, I'm using this medication. And then I have lost this weight, that weight. It's easy just to take an injection, right? And people are willing to spend the money on it. It's not cheap, especially in this country. It's almost $900 to $1,000. Now, the drug companies have made it better or easier now. I think now it became like 500 or 600 if you pay cash. But with the insurances, yeah, that's how much your insurance companies are paying, or somebody is paying those tax dollars. I want you to remember, we are all, um, will be affected, or if we continue the same trend. And if you people start eating healthy, the cost between lifestyle versus this medication, it's billions versus millions. Okay. So definitely, I mean, we are looking into like huge cost, and you have to remember like who are making these and who is promoting these, all of that. I mean, I'm not saying these drugs are bad. We do give it. They can be a aid support in the beginning, definitely. And for people with diabetes, of course, they could be life changing because they don't have to take so much insulin. Definitely well worth it. Now, there is more and more data coming up showing that, okay, they may be helpful for heart disease and other things. But does everybody need it? Can it be done in a different way? Of course. Are we looking at like, even the kids and everybody just staying on them just because we need to look good? Is that necessarily healthy? Now, I didn't talk to you about like there is a new something that came out of recently, like from India, malnutrition related diabetes. Okay, it's type 5 diabetes, not necessarily related to this, but that exists. Okay, so just FYI, because people in Africa, India, Asia, they are malnourished, and then that eventually leads to diabetes.
Wow.
And so, having said that, sometimes I feel like people want to or intentionally becoming malnourished.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not getting enough nutrition. I mean, they're focusing only on, okay, I'm good, I'm not hungry, so I don't have to eat the whole entire day. I'm happy and I don't have those cravings. But one thing I want to remember is it sustainable?
Yeah.
Almost 50% of them stop the medication because of some kind of side effects within a year or so. There are, again, you have to read the label on it. So there is a risk of pancreatitis, there is a risk of, or if there is family history of thyroid cancer, we don't recommend it. But there are some rare cases of like thyroid cancer and eye disease like diabetic retinopathy. It probably is related to improvement in the sugars or the changes in the. But again, if there are any like bleeding vessels or anything, we say it can get worse when you start this medication. But having said that, I mean, there are pros and cons to it. It's not only Ozempic, I mean, anything in that whole class of GLP. And we are getting like more and more drugs in pipeline. There is Manzaro, Zepbound, like there are so many of them. Now they are planning to come in with the pill. Liver disease is another common thing which they are trying to advocate, like these medications could be helpful. I mean, in general, any weight loss, your fatty liver gets better, your diabetes gets better when you lose weight.
Yeah.
But how do you do it? How do you do it in a healthy way? How do you do it in a sustainable way is the most important thing. So instead of saying, like, I just don't want to eat, I'm happy, eat healthy. Okay. Keep yourself full. Even if you eat a pound of vegetables, you don't gain weight because it's only 100 calories. And not every calorie is the same in everybody.
Yeah. So, what about raw foods? People eat a lot of raw foods and juices. How much, like, what should the limit be on somebody who's never had like juice on a regular basis and wants to start on a juice diet, or maybe just add to their diet? So, a glass of juice a glass of juice a day is good? And how many fruits should you mix and should you not mix for it to not have a high sugar content?
So if you're not a diabetic, if you're a normal person, the general recommendation is you can eat up to 5 to 6 servings of fruits and vegetables, even up to 8. And by the time you eat that many servings of fruits and vegetables, I'm sure you'll be really, really full.
That
But
is
then
true.
having it in the juice form, mixing fruits and having it in a juice form, isn't that higher in sugar content?
It depends. So when you mix it, so depends on how you are making the juice, right? So when you eat the fruit or vegetable, typically again, it's a packaged food with fiber content in it and all the other things, nutrients, everything packaged, right? Like a matrix. And when you eat them, it's slowly absorbed. Always fiber binds to the glucose, right? So it's slowly released. When you remove the fiber, again, like I said, how you do the juice, are you keeping the pulp, removing the pulp, all these things do matter. Then probably the fructose content goes up because you have removed the fiber or it's a quicker absorption. Still, probably it is definitely still healthier than some of the other things where there are added sugar. And green juices, I mean, like, because people may or may not be able to eat like so many greens. And if they are able to make the juice and able to get the benefit out of it, that's okay. And there are people who do like the raw diet or they feel like it helps the inflammation. Again, what can you continue for on a long-term basis is very important.
Yeah. Also, it's good for your gut health too, right? Like if you,
Yes, fiber. Fiber really has like good benefits. Most people do not focus on the fiber, but there is a lot of, again, fat about the protein and other things.
yeah. Yeah. So what is the myth or common misconceptions that you hear the most about thyroid or diabetes that you wish people really understood it?
Thyroid is not the only cause of the weight gain.
That is directly for me because that's what I thought.
Yeah, there may be multiple factors. But again, if the thyroid levels are off, I totally understand. But in general, yeah, that may or may not be the only thing. And with regards to diabetes, it's not just because you ate sugar or something. I mean, partly, but it's just not like, just ate the sugar and you got the diabetes or it's a whole lifestyle. But adding sugar, too much salt, and too much of the processed foods or oils, fat, these are simple things that we can do, minimizing them at least, if not completely avoiding them. That helps a lot to prevent diabetes or any of the other diseases, honestly. It's not only diabetes. And if we do not do anything, I mean, the next generation and the next generation, what do they eat? Right now, everything that you find, even in the hospital food or like school foods, I mean,
Yeah.
they're not necessarily healthy.
Mm,
Nobody is taking the time to pack the food.
yeah.
Nobody is taking the time, like, to make that 5-minute chia seed pudding or whatnot. It shouldn't take that long. I mean, I'm sure you all grew up in India or like, came from there. How long does it take to really make some of these things? If you made the batter or buy the batter, it is still protein, right? To make idli or to make something simple. It's not that difficult when we are able to commit to so many other things? Why can't we spend like that 10 minutes, right? Or again, community is very important also. I mean, who you are engaging in. If everybody does the same thing, I'm sure, like,
Yeah.
people or kids see the same thing and they follow the same thing. It has to start from homes and schools, honestly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the next generation, I mean, the statistics show that 2/3 of the people will be obese.
Wow. Wow. So it also depends on hereditary, right? Because we hear that diabetes, if the parents have diabetes, then we all kind of more likely to have it. Is that true? Or again, lifestyle matters?
Lifestyle definitely matters because there have been studies and data showing that even your genetics or genes can be modified when you change your life. So, yes, definitely, it is very powerful. Type 1, okay, I understand. Okay, maybe there is some genetic component and you can't completely avoid everything. Type 2, I think you definitely can make a change. Yes, we may have the genetic predisposition. As Asians, you don't have to be really overweight, and you may have the genetic predisposition that you develop the insulin resistance very easily. But if you start making the changes, start making the lifestyle changes early on, and try to follow the healthier options, definitely. I mean, you can taste, but if you overeat, then of course, it's very likely that you can definitely develop the disease. And people are not aware of it. I mean, more than 50%, not even 50%, CDC says 80 to 90% of the people are not aware of their prediabetes. Even young kids, like we do sensors monitoring, but when once we start checking the A1Cs, everybody is like above 5.7.
Wow.
So what is the actual, we hear so many different people, oh, you're 6.0, that's okay, that's not pre-diabetic. I used to have like 7, it doesn't matter. I don't, and sometimes some people say 5.5 or even over 5.5, you should worry about it, that you should cut down and make some lifestyle changes, right? So what is the point where you have to say, no, that's it. You got to start making changes because you're getting into that pre-diabetic. What is that A1C number, the magic number?
So below 5.7 is the cutoff. 5.7 we consider as pre-diabetes. 5.7 to 6.5 is pre-diabetes. Above 6.5 is diabetes.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay.
But having said that, any random blood sugar above 200, we consider that as diabetes also.
Yeah. So do you think
Okay.
that instead of sugar, because we, as Desis, we all hear it like instead of sugar, have good or add a brown sugar, have substitute sweeteners, like, but don't eat sugar. Do you think that helps, or is that good to have good instead of having sugar?
Sugar.
I believe that it is still sugar. I don't see that there is any fiber or anything. But dates, probably, if you're adding date in place of sugar, it does have a little bit more fiber.
I see. Oh, okay. Okay. So what about having bitter gourd juice, or even eating bitter gourd or neem leaves juice? Like I remember our grandmother when we were kids, once a year we were compulsory, mandatory, we had to have neem leaves juice. Like she would make us gulp it down. It's so disgusting, so bitter, but she made us drink that. Does that help with diabetes?
You know what? I don't want to say I know too much about the neem juice or anything, but I'm sure it is healthy though. I mean, considering all the medicinal effects and everything. Same thing with the bitter gourd. All the green juices in general do help with the diabetes. Even otherwise, any other vegetable green juice or anything does help also. Yes, there is some data to some of these things, like, people say cinnamon and other things, turmeric. They're anti-inflammatory. They do help with the insulin resistance. But again, the quantity, it's a little bit difficult to say, okay, are we getting enough quantity just by drinking the juice?
Mm.
Like once in a while, right?
All right.
But if you, again, like we talked about it, I'm sure definitely there are some medicinal effects and everything. And if you are able to tolerate it, definitely do it. But otherwise, in general, I say eat more vegetables as long as you enjoy them. Eat more vegetables, and that should give you good amount of fiber, so your sugars don't rise too much.
Yeah.
So, doctor, my son-in-law is doing fellowship to become endocrinologist, and he's in his second year. What would you say to any new residents or doctors who are pursuing the same specialty? Is there any advice for them?
There is not enough nutrition taught in medical schools or even including my fellowship, I have to say. I have learned a lot by doing the lifestyle medicine certification, and then I have also done the diabetes remission program. So there is a lot more that they on the nutrition that they don't necessarily teach in the medical schools. Now it has been changing depending on where he's doing his fellowship, right? There are some schools now, even in the medical schools, now they are trying to incorporate the lifestyle. So, because people listen to the physicians. Actually, this week is Lifestyle Medicine Week.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Then we have
Yeah.
a
So,
perfect
there is
episode
good
today.
data. Yeah. So, if people are listening to their primary care or whoever, the physician, if the physician tells it, people to think, okay, it's coming from the scientific evidence, expert evidence, all of these, right? So, as physicians, if we first understand how the lifestyle can be incorporated into the people's lives and how can we make it easier, better for them. If we start advocating, I'm sure it will be much, much powerful and meaningful. So I just made a LinkedIn post today. Actually, it was from Food as Medicine Network. I have been there recently in Chicago. Everybody eats 3 meals. If I have 1,000 patients, I'm contributing to almost like 1 million meals a year. So if we can, it's very powerful, impactful if we can make change. And I do have like medical students, I do have like pre-med students, a lot of people work with me from different medical fields. The other day, my one of my students, she brought the chia seed pudding. I mean, I didn't think much, like, I think like they are listening. They do it? I don't know. But she's going to become OBGYN. And then I was telling the patient, okay, chia seed pudding. We even write it down, like all things, right? And she was like, oh, do you want to see? And I have it in the refrigerator. She brought it like it was her breakfast, lunch, whatever. She brought it and showed it to the patient, how she made it, which was very nice. So at least, if I'm changing her, and then she may tell few other people, all her patients eventually, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
I have
Oh, that's
more
very nice.
question for I don't know for any woman who is in her 50s or going through menopause. Obviously, there are hormonal changes going on there. So, is there always a sign that'll tell you that okay, you need to see a doctor, or you should, or is there a reason for someone to just go and just have your hormones checked just in case as a prevention?
You will find a lot of signs and symptoms of menopause even before the real menopause starts, right? So once you notice the changes, if you're having like issues with bleeding, of course, we want you to get tested, make sure it's not like some kind of cancer, even though we know that it could be related to menopause. Um, Do you have to check the hormones during menopause? Maybe, maybe not. But if you need the hormonal treatment, of course, regardless of the level, if you need it, you need it. If it's making your life miserable, of course, you can definitely use the least amount possible, as long as you don't have family history of breast cancer or anything. But also, there is some good evidence on making general lifestyle changes also that may be helpful. The first 3 to 5 years of the menopause is the worst part on symptoms. One other thing I do want to mention is we don't pay too much attention to the bones. We do not pay attention to the nutrition, which is very important, I think, during that phase. Same thing, again, broccoli, greens, all these have good amount of calcium. So very important to incorporate them. Exercise is very, very, very important. And muscle strengthening or bone strengthening exercises are very important. People do not pay attention. Walking is okay, but still do something like resistance training or weight training. So it helps to build up. If you don't use the muscle, you lose it.
Wow. Yeah. That's very this episode has been full of insights and very information, a lot of information about thyroid, diabetes, and I really truly appreciate Dr. Prashanthi for giving us such a good incredible insights about all these, right? And we appreciate your time. And I truly want to say that it's really good to hear not just being a doctor but also being a lifestyle coach. It helps us understand more about how we can make changes in our life and what we need to do. And like I think in this whole episode we've been talking about just the little changes that we can make, like especially with our diet and exercise, and
Gonna
that can
eat
help.
chia seed pudding tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna try the chia pudding. I don't like the
I'll
looks
soak
of
it
it,
tonight.
but I will definitely give it a shot. I promise I'll give it a shot of it for the chia pudding. I'll let you know, Dr. Prashanti, if I try it or not.
You know what? You don't have to try the chia seed pudding. Actually, you can make even rava dosa. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Mhm.
If you can grind all of them and you can make it like what do you call it? I mean, I call it dosa, but whatever.
Yeah,
Crepe.
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can make it any version of it. It doesn't have to be the same version every single day.
Awesome. I can live with the rava dosa. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. So you can do it without adding the flour and then just like, grinding up all these seeds and nuts and everything too.
Okay, awesome. I think I'll go for that one.
Yeah. And we do. And one more thing I want to say, we do like group visits. I mean, the main goal is like having the community is also important, the support and community. So when I do like diabetes remission programs, but the group visits are very helpful. And I still do like once a month support group where people just come in. We do like show them, provide food or like cooking demos, some of these things, which are very helpful.
Yeah, and I think
And then
very educational for people to understand it. And especially, like you said, when they're in the group setting, it makes you understand more because what I have in my mind is different than what somebody else is thinking. And when we're talking in a group, it makes it so much more impactful and more it the understanding is much more easier, I guess.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Prashanti. We really, really appreciate this. And your dedication to building healthier communities is truly inspiring. To all our listeners, if today's conversation sparked something in you, please take the next step, whether it's scheduling a checkup or making a small lifestyle shift or simply sharing this episode to someone who needs it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow Global Desi Women on your favorite podcast platform. We are here to uplift, educate, empower our community one story at a time. Until next time, take care of your health and others. Thank you.
Thank you.